Before Leviathan ruled the seas. Before Behemoth shook the land. There was a creature so vast the sky itself bent beneath its wings. The Bible hints at it. Ancient texts feared it. Its name was Ziz. What if the greatest creature God ever made didn't walk the earth, but covered it? Before mountains learned their names. Before oceans were given borders. Before the sky was ever called above. God divided dominion. Creation was not chaos, but it was power. Raw. Untamed. Waiting to be ordered. And so, according to ancient scripture and whispered tradition, the Creator did something few ever notice. He placed guardians over the realms. To the sea, he assigned Leviathan, coiled strength, keeper of the deep, whose movements stirred the foundations of the waters. To the land, he formed Behemoth, unyielding, immovable, whose weight anchored the earth itself. But the sky demanded something greater. For the heavens were vast, borderless, and restless. Winds roared without command. Storms had no shepherd. The air itself needed restraint. And so God spoke again. From the breath of heaven and the fire of creation, Ziz was formed. Not merely a bird, but a colossus of the air. When Ziz first unfolded its wings, the sky trembled. Clouds scattered like startled sheep. Light bent around feathers too vast to measure. Its wingspan stretched from horizon to horizon, not in haste, but in authority. This was no creature meant to perch. This was a creature meant to rule the winds. Ancient tradition says Ziz stood at the edge of the world, one foot upon the earth, the other brushing the vault of heaven. Its head rose so high that the sun traced its path around it. Its eyes reflected the order of creation itself. Stars forming and unforming within their depths. And God saw that the sky now had a guardian. Where Leviathan restrained the chaos of the waters. Where Behemoth bore the weight of the land. Ziz became the balance of the air. The winds answered its movement. Storms formed at the beat of its wings. The flight of every bird, great and small, followed patterns first carved by Ziz. Psalm 50 would later whisper, I know all the fowls of the mountains. But Ziz was no mountain bird. Ziz was the mountain. Lifted into the heavens. Yet even in its greatness, God placed limits. For power without restraint births destruction. Ziz was vast enough to darken the world with a single pass, yet commanded to fly only when the balance of creation demanded it. Its shadow was not meant to rule humanity, but to remind it. The sky was never empty. It was never wild. It was never forgotten. Above every kingdom, every ocean, every age. Something watched. And long before humanity learned to fear monsters of the deep or beasts of the land. Creation itself knew this truth. The heavens already had a king. And its name was Ziz. There came a day when the sky itself grew unfamiliar. The sun still rose. The wind still moved. But something vast stirred above the world. And creation held its breath. From the far edge of the heavens, Ziz took flight. Not in haste. Not in rage. But in purpose. As its wings opened, light dimmed, not because night had fallen, but because the sky was no longer empty. A shadow stretched across the land, swallowing hills, rivers, and kingdoms alike. Farmers looked up and forgot their prayers mid-sentence. Shepherds felt their flocks grow restless. Kings paused on their thrones, sensing that something older than crowns had passed overhead. This was no eclipse. This was dominion in motion. Ancient tradition says Ziz's wingspan reached from the rising of the sun to its setting. Where its shadow moved, the world cooled. Heat fled. Storms gathered themselves into order. Even the clouds seemed to make room, parting as if they recognized authority. For the shadow of Ziz was not chaos. It was control. The nations beneath it did not know its name, but they felt its presence. Entire cities vanished beneath the dimming sky, not destroyed, but humbled. Mountains stood silent. Seas calmed. The wind itself softened, as though afraid to speak out of turn. Scripture would later hint at this forgotten truth. He mocketh the clouds his chariot. Who walketh upon the wings of the wind. Psalm 104 verse 3. For what are wings? If not a throne in motion? Ziz did not blot out the sun by accident. Its flight was rare, reserved for moments when the balance of creation trembled. When storms grew too wild. When heat scorched the land. When the air itself strained under unseen weight. And when Ziz flew, the world was reminded. The heavens had a governor. Legends whispered that when Ziz passed overhead, entire armies froze mid-march, overcome by a fear they could not name. Children fell silent. Animals knelt. Even the birds, masters of the sky in their own right, dropped from the air, unwilling to share the heavens with their origin. For every feathered creature carried the memory of Ziz in its bones. It was said that the shadow of Ziz carried judgment, not of destruction, but of scale. A reminder that humanity was never meant to command the sky. The air did not belong to kings, nor nations, nor empires. It belonged to God. And God had placed his seal upon it. High above the clouds, Ziz continued its course, unseen by most, unforgettable to all. When the shadow finally passed and sunlight returned, the world exhaled, but it was not the same. For once you realize the sky can be covered, you never look at it the same again. And somewhere beyond sight, beyond clouds and stars, the great bird turned its gaze forward. The shadow had passed. But Ziz still flew. There are some details ancient writers recorded only in whispers. Not because they were uncertain, but because the truth was too heavy. Ziz was not only vast in flight. Its power extended even to what it carried. Ancient Midrash speaks of the eggs of Ziz, not as symbols, not as metaphors, but as literal objects of unimaginable scale. Each one was said to be so immense that if it ever fell from the heavens, the impact would erase cities, reshape landscapes, and turn valleys into graves. Life itself. Too heavy for the world to bear. The heavens could hold them. The earth could not. One account tells of an egg that slipped too low, cracking the air as it descended. When it struck, the force drowned villages, flattened fields, and sent shockwaves through the land. The writers did not linger on the destruction. They moved on quickly, as if even remembering it felt dangerous. Because this was the lesson. Creation was not fragile. It was restrained. Ziz carried potential annihilation not because it was evil, but because power at that scale must be governed. And so, tradition says God intervened, not to destroy Ziz, but to limit it. The eggs were restrained. The cycles were controlled. The skies were monitored. For if Ziz reproduced freely, the balance of creation would collapse beneath the weight of what heaven could produce. This was not punishment. This was mercy. It is written that God sets bounds for the sea so it does not overstep. In the same way, the skies were given boundaries, unseen laws placed upon a creature vast enough to shatter the world by accident. Ziz obeyed. And that obedience is what separates a monster from a servant. Think of it. A creature capable of ending civilizations. Choosing restraint. Choosing silence. Choosing order. While humanity, so small by comparison, often fails to do the same. Some ancient voices even suggested that the fear of Ziz's eggs was meant to teach humility. That mankind was never meant to forget how close destruction always stands, held back not by chance, but by divine command. The earth survives not because it is strong, but because God limits what touches it. High above the clouds, Ziz continued to soar, carrying within itself the reminder that life and death were separated by obedience. The skies were not dangerous because Ziz existed. They were safe because Ziz was restrained. And perhaps that is the most unsettling truth of all. Not that a creature exists that could end cities in a moment. But that such power still exists. And has chosen, until now, not to fall. Not all shadows bring fear. Some arrive as mercy. When the sun burned too fiercely, when the land cracked and the air itself shimmered with heat, ancient tradition says the heavens moved in compassion. The world groaned beneath the weight of light and creation cried out, though humanity did not yet know how to listen. And Ziz answered. High above the earth, the great bird adjusted its course. Its wings, vast beyond comprehension, spread not in judgment, but in protection. Feathers stretched across the sky like a living canopy, softening the blaze of the sun. Light filtered through them, gentled, transformed. The earth cooled. Fields breathed again. Waters steadied. Life endured. This was no accident of nature. This was design. For the same wings that could darken nations were also capable of sheltering them. The same power that could end cities could also preserve them. Ziz was not created to terrify the world, but to serve the balance that sustained it. Ancient voices spoke of this with quiet awe. They said Ziz's wings were like a second firmament, an unseen layer of protection between heaven's fire and earth's fragility. A reminder that the Creator did not abandon his creation to extremes, but placed guardians between forces too great for humanity to endure. Scripture would later echo this truth. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. Psalm 91 verse 4. Perhaps the psalmist knew more than he wrote. Perhaps the image of divine shelter was not only poetic, but remembered. For Ziz did not merely block the sun. It filtered it. Its feathers shimmered with patterns unknown, etched with the order of creation itself. Wind moved differently beneath them. Time seemed to slow. Even the sky felt quieter, as though creation itself leaned into the moment. Below, humanity lived on, unaware of how close mercy flew above their heads. Children laughed. Seeds took root. Civilizations endured. All because something enormous chose to protect rather than destroy. And that is the paradox of Ziz. It was terrifying. And benevolent. Unimaginable in scale. Yet precise in purpose. The heavens were not cruel. They were careful. When the heat passed, Ziz lifted its wings once more. Light returned in full brilliance. The world warmed, but did not burn. Balance restored. No trumpet sounded. No record was etched in stone. Only a quiet truth remained. The world survives not only because of laws and limits, but because mercy moves above it. And somewhere beyond human sight, where clouds thin and stars begin, the great bird continued its watch. Unseen. Uncelebrated, yet essential. For the sky has always had a guardian. And sometimes, that guardian spreads its wings. Every guardian has an appointed hour. The ancient writings never claimed that Ziz would fly forever. Like Leviathan of the sea and Behemoth of the land, Ziz was formed not only for the beginning, but for the end. For creation moves in cycles. And what God restrains in mercy, he fulfills in purpose. Tradition speaks of a time beyond time, when history bends inward and the world approaches its appointed conclusion. In that age, the balance Ziz once guarded will no longer be necessary. The winds will not need restraint. The sun will no longer threaten the earth. Chaos itself will be silenced. And then, Ziz will descend. Not in terror. Not in rebellion. But in obedience. The same heavens that once trembled beneath its wings will open before it. The great bird will no longer patrol the skies, for the skies themselves will be made new. Its task completed. Its watch ended. Ancient voices describe a final summoning, when God calls forth the three titans of creation. Leviathan rises from the depths. Behemoth stirs upon the land. And Ziz comes down from the heavens. Together, they stand as witnesses, not enemies, before the Creator who formed them. This is not destruction for destruction's sake. It is completion. Some traditions speak of a great feast prepared in that age, not as spectacle, but as symbolism. A declaration that no power, no creature, no force of chaos ever stood outside God's authority. What once restrained the world now testifies to it. Ziz, whose wings once shaded nations, will no longer need to cast a shadow. For there will be no scorching sun, no unbalanced wind, no fragile earth to protect. The heavens themselves will be ordered, forever. And in that moment, humanity will finally understand. The creatures they feared were never threats. They were servants. Placed at the edges of creation to remind the world that God's power is not distant, not abstract, but active, deliberate, and absolute. The sky will fall silent. Not empty, but complete. No more guardians. No more restraints. No more shadows. Only order. Only light. Only the Creator. And His finished work. And perhaps, in that final clarity, humanity will look back on the ages of mystery and realize something unsettling and beautiful. The Bible never exaggerated. The heavens were always alive. The sky was always watched. And the greatest powers of creation never ruled us. They answered to Him. The ancient world looked up in fear. The modern world looks up in silence. Yet the truth has never changed. The sky was never empty. Before satellites traced invisible paths. Before planes carved lines through the clouds. Before humanity believed the heavens were only space and air. Something watched. Ziz was not a myth born of imagination. It was a reminder written into creation itself. That the sea had a guardian. The land had a keeper. And the sky. The sky had a throne in motion. We feared monsters because we forgot order. We dismissed the ancient texts because we underestimated scale. But Scripture never promised comfort, only truth. And the truth is this. Power exists far beyond our measure. Yet it bows to God. The same Creator who restrains the wings of heaven also restrains the chaos within us. If He can command the skies, He can command the storm in your life. So the next time you feel small beneath the heavens, remember. You are not beneath chaos. You are beneath authority. And nothing. Not the depths of the sea. Not the weight of the land. Not even the vastness of the sky. Has ever ruled outside His will. If the Bible hinted at creatures this powerful, what else have we overlooked? Subscribe for the mysteries Scripture doesn't explain, but never denies. And tell me in the comments. If God placed guardians over the sea, the land, and the sky, what do you think He placed over you?